possible. So how are your travels?
Good. I haven't really been anywhere exciting recently.
You got it out of New Hampshire, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like to keep things fresh, but
Yeah.
thinking about something over the winter, but not sure what I'll be able to afford, quite frankly. So
Wow.
I just do like a long weekend and somewhere in the Northeast. I don't know.
Um, my favorite place to go, but it is not affordable this time of year is in Washington.
Oh, yeah. I've been in the building, but never stayed there.
So much fun. Stickney's Pod was amazing. They just have some cool places to just hang and look and love it.
A lot of history.
It's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of stuff happening.
Yeah, I've heard.
The cave is
Presenting.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, if you're looking to stay, that's a place I would
session of the last day. We're gonna have like 30 people.
It's really pretty.
It's like this first time doing it.
Yeah.
I know, I'm like, what the hell, you COVID baby?
I know, he's done so much digitally, but hasn't done it in person.
It's so hysterical, yeah. Thus me, I'm in my relaxed mode
Yes.
outfit to
Yeah, you're.
do a fireside chat kind of thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm sort of kicking us off, setting the
Oh.
stage. We were
That's
like
very
relaxed.
I'm sure.
Those are where that is. Yeah, it's right off the coast. It's in the Bahamas. Okay. Someone has seen the sun, I'm like,
You've seen the sun, Liz?
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, it's this weird mythical thing that I never, I seem vaguely remember childhood memories of it.
I'm gonna let Kevin and make him a chat.
It was pretty cool.
Oh, nice. I'm looking at a new December vote.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hoping for actually voting on. Well, how many changes or? I was in any meeting since like we released a second guy. Yeah. No. So, we've been changes like I started since. Minor season there, the bucks. Otherwise. Be amazing.
Coffee or lunch?
No, the board changed a lot.
So you get to see your eyes for a change.
That's winter. So nice.
Goodness, there's,
Right.
you need those glasses that automatically.
Why don't we too?
I don't like those.
Absolutely.
Those are.
Like, why don't we meet
Well, it's better than blinking.
Right. Yeah, that's why I have that's why. This one, I don't.
It might have a go eater.
Yeah, but then we can't do it.
Well, take them on for meetings.
It's almost, you guys must be gearing up to do the holiday lake tours. I know, that's exciting. You guys get to have a little fun at work. Don't you, Mark?
It's nice.
Right.
It's like a crap place, but always.
Yeah.
Oh, you might have ideas.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll figure out the.
Halfway to the forum.
So.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna
Alright,
get
that
there.
works. Okay, sounds good. I will research those. Awesome. I will.
Would you be willing to chair the meeting today?
I don't know if I need to be.
We can have some.
Sylvia, excuse me, are you recording on the conference computer? I see that it is, but I just want to verify.
It started when I started the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, because we're at 9:30. And it looks like most of our people are virtual today. All right. And we don't have a quorum, so there's no meeting minutes to review.
I'm very, very disappointed. I purposely came in person, so I'm like, I might be the one deciding.
We can just do introduction. That works.
Okay, all right, so let's call the meeting to order at 9:32. And if we could do introductions, I'm Elizabeth Roden with the town of Derry, and I'm going to start.
Zach Swift with the community.
Liliana Bornham with the commission. Suzanne Neighbor with the commission.
Anthony Summers with the planning commission.
James Baylor with the commission.
Nate Miller, staff. Butch Laker, Manchester Planning.
Adam Osney, staff.
Sylvia Von Aulock, also with the commission.
Mike Wynn, Manchester Transit.
Okay, and online, starting with David.
Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning. David Tilton with the commission.
Okay, Ben.
Hi, Ben Herbert, Region 8 Mobility Manager.
Okay, Linda.
She sometimes has trouble with the phone.
Okay, so
You can use chat, Linda,
so we have,
just so we know you're there.
yeah, we have Linda Kunhart from Francistown. Kale
Good morning, Cam Perlman, staff with the commission.
and Maggie
Good morning, Maggie Baldwin, Manchester DPW.
and William.
Hey, good morning, William Rose with DOT.
I think that is everyone. Welcome everybody to the TAC meeting of November 20th. We cannot approve minutes because we don't technically have a quorum, so let us move into the presentation of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan overview by James.
Yes.
Just a second here. All right. Cam, can you see the full screen?
I can.
Okay, great. Cool. All right, so today I want to provide an overview of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This is informational and it's sort of an announcement of the 30-day public comment period for the MTP update. And there we go. And what we're going to cover today are the various chapters of the MTP. And at a high level, we won't be able to get into all the content, but I'll try to hit on the major points from each one of the chapters. Before we start, just an overview of what the MTP or Metropolitan Transportation Plan is. And it's really a long-range framework for making transportation decisions. And this particular one looks out to the year 2050. The MTP is a core product of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission MPO. We are required to develop a long range plan or an MTP, and the Code of Federal Regulations here discusses the purpose, which is really to promote a safe environment, a safe and efficient transportation system, foster growth, and consider resiliency. And also the Code of Federal Regulations 450 talks about the requirement to work with other agencies and partners in developing the MTP. So this is what USD DOT refers to as the 3C planning process. So it's cooperative, continuous, and comprehensive. There's a couple of points I wanted to bring up in terms of highlighting what's a little different in this plan, or things that I thought were of note in the plan. The first is demographics. Part of what the plan does is look at demographic data looking out to the year 2050. One of the things we know, and this really came out of the regional housing needs assessment analysis and the demographic work that was done at that time, is that population growth is expected to slow and then is forecasted to peak and then start declining by the year 2045. So it's important information. No, other element I want to note is the public engagement. We did a rather exhaustive public engagement process, and we'll cover that later in the presentation. Plan integration. So the MTP is required that you review a series of regional and state transportation plans and integrate them into the MTP. And we did that, but we went above and beyond and reviewed additional plans. And then in this MTP, we also developed a system performance report, which is also a requirement of the MTP and something our federal partners were looking for. So the first chapter, the transportation system, it's really an existing conditions chapter. And the core things that it talks about are where do people live and work and how do they get there? And so, and this is for our whole region, a region of roughly 290,000 people. Some important trends we saw when looking at existing conditions is a slow growth rate. So, year over year annual growth is less than 1%. It's 0.5% per year. So it's a pretty slow growth rate. And you'll see on the next slide how drastically different that is from prior, in some locations, prior years. Also worth noting that part of the success of our region, the competitiveness of the Southern Hampshire region, is our proximity to Boston and the Boston-Washington mega region. And so we have a lot of economic advantages and attractors in our region as a result of being, close to Boston, close to Washington, DC, and New York City. I also wanted to note on a demographic level, we're aging, and Zach put together this nice graphic for us, which outlines how trends have changed over the years. So back in 1970, just over 10% of the population was 65 years of age or older, and nearly 40% of the population was under the age of 20. So today, that number is inverted, nearly inverted. There's half as many people under the age of 20, or nearly half as many people under the age of 20, and significantly a quarter of the population is projected to be 65 years of age or older by 2030, roughly. One of the other things we did during the analysis of the region in terms of where people live and how they work is looking at where people are moving to. And this, Zach put this together as a very notable graph, I think, which talks about the fact that up until the 50s or so, a lot of the region's population lived in the city of Manchester. But after the Interstate 93 opened, the interstate highway system was built, the pattern of population growth significantly changed, and a lot of the growth was happening in the other towns that are adjacent to the highway. Your Londonderrys, your Bedfords, your, yeah, Wyndham, absolutely. Where do people work? Well, in the region, we have 150,000 people employed, and half of them, or approximately half of them, commute outside of the region. It's actually kind of a good number. It's a healthy mix. There's people working inside the region that live in the region. There's people living outside the region, driving into Manchester to work, and there's people who live here and work outside the region. And one of the things we're able to do, because we have longitudinal data from the census, is look at how far people are commuting and in what direction they're commuting. And so these graphs are just representative of some of the things we know about commuter patterns. This data is actually far more detailed than this and quite interesting to look at. If anybody is ever interested in understanding commuter patterns, you can do so by visiting On the Map, which is a census tool. Two sectors in our region make up a quarter of all jobs. So it's healthcare, social assistance, and the retail trade sector. Other notable thing is Manchester's Mill Yard in downtown contain over 20,000 jobs. And a good number of those are in the professional, scientific, and technical industries. Another thing I wanted to highlight was land use. One of the things that's maybe people wouldn't recognize because you don't drive through the undeveloped areas all that much, but a good chunk, 3/4 of the region is undeveloped. 20, leaving the other 25% developed as either a land use, or infrastructure, roads, things of that nature. One of the things Zach was able to do is look back at prior year development patterns and growth, and then project out into the future anticipated land use by the year 2050. And what we see is a small incremental increase in the amount of land that will be used by 2050. This map on the screen here, what you see in dark or in black is the developed areas. The stuff in purple is stuff that's been developed in the last, just under 50 years. And then the green is all of the undeveloped land in the region. The colors here are not great, so I apologize if people are partially colorblind. This might be hard to read. The other thing we talk about in chapter 1 is travel modes. We cover all the modes of surface transportation that exist in the region. And so that's roads, rail, transit, and pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. In addition to documenting and inventorying these facilities and assets, we also look at and take consideration of freight conditions. And some of you may remember that Dave put together a nice report on parking for trucking needs. So all these things contribute to the MTP. So chapter 2, we have public engagement, and we looked at 3 core elements or 3 core activities that happened during the MTP planning process. And the first is we held stakeholder interviews in nearly every town in the region, every municipality. We put together a project webpage referred to as Connections 2050. And we held a public survey, which included a unique feature, an interactive mapping tool to share comments. For stakeholder interview findings, we gathered input on the future trends within the region, or the opinion of the stakeholders on the future trends of the region, the goals that are laid out in the MTP, external forces at play that might be beyond the control of local municipalities, and desired future land use patterns. We put together the Connections 2050 webpage. I won't digress into that, but I did include a link in the slide deck here so that if people want to go back and refer to this later, they can just click on that link to get to the webpage. What's core about the webpage is that it included project information as that information was being developed. So when we completed the public survey, we developed a report of findings and put it on the project webpage so that people could see sooner rather than later the results of the outreach activities. Currently, the entire draft of the MTP is sitting both on the project webpage and on snhpc.org, the webpage for the Planning Commission. What did we see in the priority survey? Well, the top priorities, the survey was completed by nearly 500 people who left approximately 12,000 points of data. And three topics sort of rose to the top in terms of priority. And it was transportation choice, housing as it relates to transportation, and safety for all users of the road. And those 500 people also left 1,300 markers on the interactive map, identifying where there was a desire for improvements within the region. So really useful information. I think that information goes beyond the MTP and will be a nice ground truth for any assumptions we might make in the future about needs. The next chapter, chapter 3, is the goals and objectives. And so the goals and objectives of the MTP fit within a framework of a vision, which is outlined in our the Regional Planning Commission's comprehensive plan, which is another long use plan that looks at all topic areas within at a regional perspective. It's the comprehensive plan is equivalent to a local master plan. So the vision for the region is outlined there. Within that, we set goals and objectives for transportation. And then measures are encompassed in the performance report that is included in the MTP. Goals really reflect the input we heard from the public and stakeholders, but it also reflects our national development goals and federal planning factors, which are a requirement of the federal government. And then objectives really are, there's 3 to 5 objectives for each goal, and those objectives are framed to achieve a desired outcome for a relevant goal. I can rattle these off real quick. The goals for this MTP are a transportation system that is ... safe and secure, efficient and reliable, supportive of the economy, flexible and offers choice, is environmentally sound, is land use smart, works for the public, and is financially sustainable. The next chapter is chapter 4. It's system performance. We were just talking about measures. Well, system performance are measures that the MTP includes. It is a requirement that the MPO track performance measures, and it's a requirement from the MTO to put together a system performance report to include in the MTP. The core measures that you may be familiar with, you've probably heard Zach do his famous safety measures presentation, which is really good. And I think, Zach, will we see that again soon in January?
December.
Okay, it's coming right up.
Famous.
So annually, we have to update our safety measures. I think every other year we update our infrastructure condition and congestion reliability measures. Did I get that right? And I think it's every other year. 4 years? 4 years. So let's look at some, we'll take a quick look at some of these things. So safety, fatality trend. What we've seen is that the number of fatalities, averaged number of fatalities, has risen over the last decade of tracking. At the same time, we've seen a nearly equivalent reduction in the number of serious injuries happening in the region. Um, there's a number of reasons why that might be the case, and the system performance report looks at what some of those reasons are, sets targets, talks about past investments that have been made around safety, and talks about future planned investments that might address safety.
Just a quick question, but it would seem like if you looked at 2019 to 2023, it's actually flat if you account for the dip being when travel levels just plummeted during COVID.
You talking about serious injuries?
Yeah, down at the bottom on the
Yeah.
where you're kind of from that, but like I think it's a little bit misleading to think that it's increasing. I think that 95 figure was artificially low. It's just because there were so many fewer people in the transportation system, driving, traveling less.
One of the dynamics at play with that decline, I think, from the 2014 to 2021 period is police departments getting a better understanding of what a serious injury actually is.
All right.
And, I think a lot of things that may have been coded years past as serious injuries don't actually meet the threshold of serious injuries. So we saw a lot of those numbers go down, but some of that might be a reported dynamic.
The other thing worth noting is that I'm showing on the screen a total number, but part of what we're required to report is the rate. So a companion to each of these graphs is a rate version of it. So you can look and see just how much of an impact that might have had. But the rate is based on total population, Zach?
Vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah, so there you go. Yes.
That would be particularly interesting for the fatalities. Yeah. Because like they've gone up, but it's really small number, 19, 21, that could be an accident that had 4 people instead of 2 people. But what are the vehicle miles traveled increase over that 2-year period? Has the rate actually decreased, even though the gross numbers, which are thankfully very small, have gone up? The rates have increased as well. Okay.
It's a good point, though, that these numbers are incredibly low in relative to the total population, the number of users on our transportation network. So it doesn't take much, a van with 12 people and it crashes and you've doubled your rate for the year. So that's also part of why these are structured as 5-year moving averages, so that no peak in 1 year shows up in the graph significantly. So it's always average out over 5 years. So if you did have say a serious incident in 2025 or 2026, you would see the number go up, but it wouldn't go up by that total amount. One of the things I did want to note about this, it's not shown here, is we have to set targets for our performance measures. And one of the targets that SNHPC has set, which is rather ambitious, is to reduce the number of fatalities and serious injuries by 50% by the year 2035. And so our safety measure is one of those places where we have not hit our target, but we've set an ambitious target to help drive and motivate our decision making. Next, we have infrastructure condition, and the takeaway here is that the state and the region have seen a steady improvement in the percentage of infrastructure that is in good condition. And this is measured in terms of bridge deck. So it's not the entire bridge that's measured, it's the asphalt that sits on top of the bridge. And then pavement conditions. I'm showing one number here just for conciseness, an interstate pavement condition, but there's also a non-interstate pavement condition. These are for, is it Fed aid eligible roads only, or it's the national highway system? Yeah. And so, and then in the top, I did just highlight the percentage of interstate pavement in poor condition is less than 1%. That's a good number. I think it speaks to the quality of the infrastructure in the state of New Hampshire and our region, because these numbers are based on our region. And then the percent of bridges in poor condition is 5% in 2020. Reliability, which is, how many miles have people traveled without experiencing delay of some sort or slowdown. And what we've seen is that there's relatively little congestion in our region. Less than 5% of all miles traveled on the national highway system in the region were delayed. And that number has improved over time to, 100%. And I think, Zach might go over this the next time this measure is updated, but I think some of that is due to the way it's measured, so. And then we also track transit performance. So this includes MTA CART. It includes, to some extent, Boston Express, not entirely. And one of the things I want to note here is that there's been 0 deaths on our transit service in the time frame that we measure. History, there you go. Never, ever. So if people ask what's the safest way to get around, it's clearly a bus.
Tough to beat 0.
Probably a plane followed by a bus. A big plane, yeah. Right.
There is one other data point here for vehicles. So this is for vehicles that had measured beyond their useful life, which is a measurement of the federal government requires for this. What's notable is that MTA has a plan to replace or substitute the vehicles or affected services. And so, the next time we do this, that number is likely to be 1 or 0. So
I think it's important to note none of those are buses.
yes, that's right.
The revenue fleet is all in a state of repair. It's service vehicles. We have a dump truck we plow with. There's a front loader that does facility work. They are past their technical end of useful lives, but for how little we use them, we're gonna keep them. There's no point in spending that kind of money to buy a new truck to plow a handful of them.
Those actual people want.
Yeah, those
That's always been.
likely be there for a while, and then we'll probably get a hand-me-down from DPW or something
Right.
eventually. Wheels falls on.
All right, next chapter, travel demand, chapter 5. So the travel demand is, again, something we're required to have in the MTP. The travel demand is a software called Cube. And what it does is it takes in inputs such as housing, population, and employment, and it's able to output trips and directions of trips, or total demand for trips and direction of trip demand. And part of the way it does that is with something called a traffic analysis zone. So I took a clip of the map and put it up here. So each one of these numbered blocks contains information about housing, population, employment, the number of cars per household, and it makes a calculation of travel demand. One of the things we do as part of the model is we benchmark real world existing counts against the outputs of the model for the base year being 2022. And in this instance, the margin of difference was 1%. So this is well within their requirements for validation of the model data as accurate. What we've done is what the model does is put out information about where roads are at or near capacity. So the number of trips that are using that path are reaching the limit of or exceeding the capacity of the segment of road to process those cars in a given day. And so what you see in yellow are the segments that are near capacity, and the segments in red are the ones that are exceeding capacity. And we refer to those in the MTP as roadway deficiencies. And the aim here is to have the model, in part with all the other information that we collect with the MTP, inform decision-making about what projects to include in the project list.
Does it consider anything from neighboring regions? So like I'm looking at what I assume is 293, where there's a bunch of capacity constraint. But we know that there's also a lot of backup and capacity on the Everett Turnpike. that is currently being widened. So the amount of throughput traffic that's going to be dumped into what's already a bottleneck space is going to get significantly worse in the next few years.
Yeah, you know, there are limits.
Fairfax not in the region.
Well,
It's like,
we did, when we were first putting together, working with, the actual operation of our model, we consult to VHB. So VHB works with us to actually maintain our travel demand model. When we were preparing the initial update for the 2022 base year, we do what's called external station coordination with our colleagues. And so we actually, for the Nashua region, have their projections at the edge of our region, which we mesh to. So there is coordination there. Our model doesn't cover aspects of their region per se, but the external stations are, yes.
That's excellent. You don't have that blind spot.
Though, right? Most of the congestion and near overcapacity is all in 293 and 93, or is there something else in Manchester? Is there like Mammoth Road or something that's at near capacity?
Yeah, and there's actually, because this map's kind of hard to read for Manchester, there's a blow up of the map, and there's also a list of deficiencies. So for the base year and the horizon year, you can see exactly in the list exactly what segments of road are deficient.
How is the model for the horizon year calculated? And what is that year, do you know?
It's the year 2050. Go ahead, Nate.
Oh, it's population, socioeconomic projections are done, number of jobs, amount of population, et cetera, in each of those traffic analysis zones for out to 2050, and then a 2050 model projection is run based on the projected socioeconomic conditions in each of the traffic analysis zones in the context of whatever projects we have in the project list to address some of those deficiencies. So it's looking at future growth out to 2050, but also the improvements that are either in the works or planned or under construction right now.
One of the things we have talked about internally is the potential to maybe refine some of the assumptions in the model because it's a uniform distribution of growth based on county. And one of the things we know is we know from historic data the patterns of growth aren't necessarily uniformly distributed. So, could we in the future possibly refine the model to have a more nuanced understanding of where growth happens, i.e. like the edge of existing development? And would that change the model data? And we don't know the answers to that stuff, but it is something we talked about internally. Like, is this possible? What would be involved with that? So,
does it account at all for the you've mentioned a couple of times number of jobs, like 20,000 jobs in a million, but the type of job has changed dramatically because largely white collar. A lot of scientific, it's not pulling demographics that are likely to carpool or to use transit. Most of those 20,000 jobs are probably single occupant vehicles, maybe resulting in some of those red dots on this map, some of obviously the parking constraints the city's challenged with.
Employment is split up into 6 different types.
Okay.
So, and one of those being office.
Yep.
So that would be those, it accounts for differences in, retail versus, office versus agricultural, which there aren't many. But so there is, it's not super defined or it's not super granular, but it is accounted for.
Yes.
Interested to see how this changes once they open in 4A, because that overcapacity on 102 and the area today hopefully will change.
yeah, and the model does account for projects in the out to the horizon year. And we'll see that I included 2 more slides here. They have the same map, but it's for future year 2050, and then for without building anything, and then with building something.
Outside.
Yeah.
But that just changes.
Yeah, so here, this slide won't change, but what I'll do is I'm just toggling back and forth between the two identical slides. And what you're seeing is the 2022 output and then small differences in the future year of 2050, assuming this, slow and steady growth out to the horizon year of 2050.
And you see the change. You can see where it starts to go. It now is near capacity on 102, but then we get overcapacity on Folsom.
Yes, yeah, Sinead Road there looks.
No build map, which
Yeah.
does not include the projects in the MPP, but 4A
Yeah.
is included in the no build.
4A is in the no build.
Yeah,
Right,
it's happening, stuff that's happening now is happening in the no build.
It's the interest, yeah.
Thank you for making that distinction. I don't think I even made that clear in the MTP narrative, so maybe we should go back and revise that. I'm sure it'll be in the travel demand model, so. There's a separate report, an appendix with a separate report for the travel demand model, and it gets into the weeds of this, so. Yeah. Yeah, and it's important to note the model is a tool, and it's not a perfect tool. And also it makes a lot of assumptions about the future. And what we know is when you start getting out 5, 10, 15 years, the future is highly unpredictable. And so, this is meant to help inform decision making about the project list today. And part of why we redo the MTP every 4 or 5 years is because conditions change. We wanna change our projections. So
when a hurricane is in the ocean and
Yeah.
it's headed towards land and it's a cone, they call it the cone of uncertainty. The MTP is kind of like that to some extent. The closer you are to the current year, the more certain you are about things and assumptions and projects and what's going to happen. The farther you get towards the horizon year in 2050, the more uncertain all of that becomes. We have to look out that far because we have to look out 20 plus years. But yeah, the closer you get to, that horizon year, far more uncertainty comes into play. So it's just, you have to kind of consider, any forward-looking document that's looking out to 2050 has inherent uncertainty for that reason.
Chapter 6 strategies. So part of what we did with the MTP is identify ways that we can meet the needs of the region. So separate from a project list, which identifies specific locations where improvements are needed, we have the strategies to pull upon to apply as solutions in places where we know we need improvement. And so I've listed up here a number of different strategies that are applicable and listed in the MTP. So you have safety strategies, vulnerability strategies, physical infrastructure condition strategies, efficiency strategies, travel demand management strategies, environmental mitigation strategies, and then some Title VI considerations are included in the MTP. So I'm not going to hit on all these so that we're not going too long here, but I did want to just identify a couple of these. And the first one here is safety. And safety is informed by a number of different transportation plans that are available, both at the state level and at the local level. And one I wanted to highlight was our recent safety action plan that was approved this year or adopted this year. And within that, there are a number of countermeasures to address safety. And on top of that, Zach did this really nice analysis of the density of fatal crashes for vulnerable road users, which is a pedestrian, a bicyclist, a motorcyclist.
Fatal and serious injury. That's the two we track.
And what was found from that analysis, it put together a heat map, and what was found is that there's a high concentration of fatality, serious injury within the center of Manchester. So the walkable part of the city, which kind of goes without saying because you have a walkable environment. People are out on foot, people are on bike, which may not be true in some of the more rural areas of the region. One of the things we noted about this, because the level of density for crashes in that location is so much higher, is that if there was a strategy to take this small area and bring the crash rate in line with the rest of the region, it would decrease fatal and serious injury crashes for vulnerable road users, and for the entire region by 39%. So, you know, in terms of vulnerable road users, these pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcyclists,
Not motorcycles.
not motorcyclists.
NHTSA considers motorcyclists vulnerable roadway users. Federal highways does not.
I see. Okay.
Just make things extra complicated.
Yeah. It would reduce those crashes by 39%. It's a significant number. So in terms of strategy, you have a very small area where you could make a discrete number of safety improvements for pedestrians and bicyclists, and the result would be a significant drop in the overall rate of fatalities and serious injuries for pedestrian bicyclists in the region. That was a mouthful. So we also have travel efficiency. So this comes in a couple different flavors. You have roadway management. So this is things like optimization of intersections, ITS architecture. You have travel demand management, which is stuff like commute smart, carpooling programs, incentives to not drive to work in a single occupant vehicle. And then you have physical infrastructure improvements we're all familiar with. Those are your bigger projects, your capacity improvements, your road widenings, things of that nature. One thing I did want to note here is that there are 20 different strategies listed in the congestion management process, which SNHPC updates regularly. And the MTP draws upon those strategies to inform solutions. The number of miles, this commute smart, I just wanted to give sort of to help people understand the impact of that. The number of miles not driven during the spring commuter challenge this year was 100,000 just from that program being active. So it does have a significant impact on overall travel in the state. One of the other things we're required to do by the federal government is consider environmental mitigation, and federal regulations require that we identify agencies that we would coordinate with on addressing those mitigations to transportation projects, and we also go as far as to identify approaches that would be taken to mitigate those impacts. So here they're listed as to preserve, restore, or enhance a natural resource, for instance. The map on the left here shows a number of data points, including where conservation and quality wildlife habitats exist, watershed and floodplain and wetlands, open water, and then historic places. And then that is all overlaid with a map of the project areas included in the MTP project list. All right, financial plans is chapter 7. We're almost done here. The financial plan includes information about projected revenues, financial constraint assumptions, and operation and maintenance estimates. A notable number here out to the year 2050, we've projected to have $2.4 billion in revenues. So I thought that was an impressive number. For revenues, the assumptions or the way the projections are made are to look at two important pieces of information inform the revenue projections. It's really when is that money spent, and how is the value of the dollar changed over time, and how much money has come in, how much has the revenue increased over time as well. So for this one of the things I wanted to note is that there's a 4.4% inflation rate for the year of expenditure. So if you have $100 today and you need to spend it in the year 2050, you know, what's $100 worth in the year 2050 when you compound 4.4% inflation year over year. It's worth a lot less. It's worth less than half of $100, you know, so it has a serious impact on the amount of projects we can do. To build on top of that number is you have a increase in revenues that does not keep pace with the inflation rate. So the revenue increases are projected to be what is it, 2 point?
So for revenues, for the first 10 years of the MTP, we have tied out exactly to, well, for the first 4 years, we've tied out to the current STIP. For years 5 through 10, we've tied out to the current 10-year plan exactly what the state is projecting for revenues. Years 11 and beyond of the MTP, we are assuming 2% revenue inflation per year out to 2050. However, for project costs, the financial plan is basically boils down to what is the amount of revenue that you can reasonably expect to support the region's transportation system, and are the projects that you've programmed constrained within that available revenue? So revenues, year 11 and beyond, we're assuming 2% inflation per year in revenues, but project costs, based on today's dollars, are 4.4%. Construction cost inflation is running hotter than we anticipate revenues will grow. And that creates constraints on the overall financial program. And that is, in large part, a lot of the dynamic that is at play in the current 10-year plan that has been out at the GASSET hearings, where you have revenues that are flattish and construction cost inflation that is increasing.
Yeah, so another way to think of it is you have 2.4% value destruction for every year you go beyond today, you know, so some other notable points here in terms of revenue is over the horizon year of 2050, the project list and the financial plan includes 134 million in local revenues, 760 million in state revenues. And I did want to add a note, not revenue, but the turnpike toll credits are also accounted for in the financial plan, and that number is $275 million. I did want to take a moment to just note how projects are sourced for the project list, which is the next chapter, and identify a couple of major projects that exist in this MTP update. And so projects that are in the project list, MTP project list, are sourced from a variety of different transportation plans, and are, you know, we just talked a little bit about our travel demand model. That is one place we source, use as a source for project list. Our congestion management process, our ITS architecture, the CMP identifies congestion along specific corridors. Local corridor studies. So right now there's a corridor study, I think this beginning in Goffstown on 114. So that might result in a future project. And I don't know if there's one included in the MTP for 114, but that's the kind of thing that would result in a project being added to the list.
There is. We do have, for each of the ongoing corridor studies in the region, and there are a couple. There's 111 in Windham, there's 114 in Bedford and Goffstown. So for each of those studies, we do have a project programmed in the out years for some sort of implementation of that corridor study. We don't know really what the preferred alternatives from either of those corridor studies is going to be yet, but we do have MTP projects identified for implementation of whatever may come out of those corridor studies.
Statewide plans can inform the project list. Special studies such as Manchester's transit-oriented development plan can inform the list. I think we have a project in there from the TOD exercise. And then unfunded projects previously submitted. So this might be a town applies for a TAP grant or CMAQ funds, and for whatever reason they didn't meet the cutoff for competitiveness. That kind of project might be included in the MTP. Major projects, you guys are probably familiar with most of this or all of this. You have I-293, exit 6 and 7 in Manchester. You have exit 4A in Derry, Londonderry. You have the I-93 debt service, which I think goes out to the end of the 10-year plan. And
2034 is when the current debt service.
so in terms of the out years, it really doesn't have much of an impact, but it does, it is a drag on doing other projects because every year that we're paying the debt service on I-93, we're taking a chunk of money that would have been used for projects and we're just giving, paying back our debts. And then you have the Everett Turnpike widening, which, a lot of that is happening now, but additional work will need to happen in the future. Finally, last slide, chapter 8 is the project list. And there's really no narrative content for the project list. It is literally just the project list. You guys might be familiar with this format. It looks very similar to the 10-year plan project list. The part of this that is unique or different is that there's 3 brackets on the right side of the yearly list. I shouldn't say yearly, the brackets of years listed. So the one in kind of a peachy orange color, that stuff is the out years that would be new projects that you haven't seen in the MTP, or maybe stuff that was haven't seen in the 10-year plan, or stuff that was in the 10-year plan and got pushed out might end up in the MTP's out years. And then other things in here are all familiar to the 10-year plan. And so with that, that is the conclusion of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan overview.
Why don't you see if there's we have a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I can move out of the way too.
You can see that.
Oh, yeah, here. Just a second. I don't think it is. Is it sharing? I don't think it is. All right. Can you see it now? Yes. There's nothing on the screen. It's just we're just back in the Zoom window now. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer it. Otherwise, thank you very much.
I have a question. For the projections of people living in, it was one of the first slides, the projections of age ranges living in New Hampshire. I saw there was a sharp decline of 20-ish-year-olds going down to like 20%. Do you have any understanding as to why that flatlined in the projection?
It just flatlines because people aren't making new people.
Yeah, I was just wondering why it was like such a precipitous downturn. Like the actual because it was projected, it was like flat.
It just happens to be that I think it's more that we're slowly moving, that age group is just projected to be pretty flat. And
I was just curious why it didn't trend that continue trending down.
Because it's not that we're not having, people aren't having babies at all. It's just that we're reaching a level and we're kind of just staying there.
Yeah, but like the pattern of household formation is different. Instead of having 2.5 kids, and that's pretty typical now. It's 1 kid, and it's not every family.
But they're not having no kids.
That's true.
And so and it's kind of projected to be, and you'll also notice that once the baby boomer population begins to decrease, the 65 also kind of just flattens out. It looks, as far as we can tell, we're going to kind of hit a stasis, but it's like Nate said, it's all fairly uncertain.
Yeah, I was just curious because it was like down, and then as soon as it hit projected,
Well, it would take time, right? Because if you had a decrease in birth rate, the 1-year-olds are 2, the 2s are 3s, it still takes you 20 years for that last group before the shrinkage to age out. So you'd see kind of a continuing decrease, even if the birth rate had stabilized over the 2 decades. And then all of a sudden it would kind of right itself.
One of the things the population projection can't do is do a good job at estimating migration.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I was gonna say, yeah, and that's the real unknown because we know in New Hampshire, we have been for at least 5 years, seeing more deaths than births. Any increase we see is because of in-migration, and that can vary a lot year by year. And so when we make the projection, we look back at the state looks back the last couple of years and says, okay, what was it then? The last 10 years, okay, we're gonna project that forward. But if it shifts either way, then the projection would be significantly wrong.
Yeah. Are there projections for like young or mid-career age groups similar to the
Yes.
graph?
Yes, I just didn't include those.
Similar to the 60s or the 20s?
I have to go back and look. I don't remember. I mean, it's kind of, what we're going towards is the age pyramid looks like this traditionally, where you have lots of kids on the bottom and, very few old people. As modern societies are more shifting to have it be like a pillar, where you have a general population of every age group is of a similar proportion. And that's very unusual. That's never happened in human history.
Yeah, and you would think that, oh, well, maybe like immigration policy matters a lot to the number, but it really, the amount of people that move to New Hampshire that are from other countries moving to New Hampshire are particularly small. The real migration number is domestic migration. And that I think is partly a factor of housing production. So if you don't have houses for sale or houses are expensive and there's no place for people to live, and that drives up the cost of living and drives down the competitiveness of the economic environment, then less people move to the state of New Hampshire. So really housing is probably a significant factor in the region's population growth.
And wealthier people too. Like when you look at the numbers, the people migrating in versus out is like their income is very different.
Yeah.
Like people get priced out in New Hampshire, but you have market incomes in New Hampshire.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of our proximity to the Boston-Washington corridor too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. All right, we have Mike on the MTA Transit Center.
That's the three. Yeah, they are. Nice, thanks.
You just have to share the screen. I don't know if you did that.
No, I'm sorry. That's all right. Is that working, Ben? Can you see the map?
Cam.
Cam?
Anyone?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to start with this one. It's the easiest one to kind of work from. So this is MTA right now. This is our building. There are school buses that the Manchester School District owns that kind of ring the back part of the property. And then the dashed red line is MTA's property line. So that's the project area. After a bunch of back and forth, largely with James on different site kind of potentials, ultimately, we ended up coming right back to our current property. So the two biggest reasons for that, one was its proximity to the rail corridor and wanting to be able to build a transit center that not just met the needs for busing today, but also positioned itself to meet the needs for commuter rail if and when it ever materialized. It seemed so foolish to me to have to build two transit centers, one for each mode. So and kind of hoping that if we can take facility construction down in cost, maybe that helps one day push commuter rail over the hump. And then the other is just the existing rules for NEPA and land acquisition, needing to do that environmental review before you can put in a purchase order or anything with a property owner. Finding somebody that was even willing to talk with us about potentially selling us property, but only after we told them everything environmentally wrong with it. And then if there was anything, we'd be able to walk away, and now they've been notified. Surprisingly, nobody was really interested in that. So coming back to where we already own the property just ultimately made the most sense.
you can see on this picture, there's an addition that was put on. This is the larger rectangle is the original building. That's where MTA moved in 1973. This annex was put on in the 80s. This is where our dispatch center is, and then our admin. So this project is what we're thinking of as the first of two phases. So there will be a two-story transit center constructed right here, with bus bays kind of ringing the perimeter on all sides. The original building will be preserved. So vehicle storage and vehicle maintenance, not part of this phase. But the annex that was put on will be demolished. We will all move to the second story of the new facility, and the buses will drive through here. Post construction, the hope is to then redo the maintenance and vehicle storage, and that would see it shift about 1,500 feet to the west. This is our existing bus wash. These are our existing fuel pumps. We know that we're going to have to replace the underground fuel tanks anyway. We know that the bus wash is 34 years old. That is well past its useful life. I'd like to move the maintenance part over here. We already have all of the plumbing. We have the underground tanks. It doesn't make sense to me to move all of this infrastructure here. Rather, we'll move the bays and the lifts over so that there'll be two entrances. Right now, all of our maintenance bays go in this direction, up and down. Basically, it will switch and go this way, which makes more sense with the size of the lot too. You see, we have a lot more space across. So there'll be two ways in. One will be a service lane where buses will be fueled, fare boxes dumped, the bus wash will be there. Then there'll be a bypass lane if they're just bringing it into park. So that is kind of a secondary piece, but the transit center will be up here. All MTA operations will move from Veterans Park down to here. So we will return to the city. It's curbage, presumably to be used for new parking spaces, and we will vacate the Welcome Center. We have half of that right now at Veterans Park. The other half is a police substation. We'll pull everything down to this new location. For a timeline, NEPA is hopefully just about done. The last phase was an agricultural and historic structures study that was completed. I am hoping to get the results of that any day now. Once we've got that, I can submit that to Region 1, and then the state of New Hampshire has a 30-day review period where they can make comment. If there's anything in there, my hope is that there is nothing. And then NEPA is done. We can officially obligate the grant and go out to bid for project management and final design. Ideally looking to construct this in 26 and 27. So whole lot of regulatory, box checking in this first year to actually open the ground up. There have been 80 little yellow and black delays to that. Our agreement with the school district for storage and maintenance of their buses ends June 30th of 2026. So hopefully this all aligns. We get the over this winter, do the RFP for project management, final design, issue the design build in the spring. And as soon as they all leave on June 30th, we're ready to open the ground. We'll flip. This is all employee parking up here. That's what will all come back here. We are also working with the city. The city has a grant for extending some of the street network up and through. So one thing that we have in common is the need to address drainage for stormwater runoff. So there's been some talk about putting something up here or something, potentially in the back, but trying to put both projects together so that we're taking into account what it's going to look like 5 years from now. There's also some thought MTA is very interested in shrinking the amount of non-permeable surface that's back here. So this lot is significantly larger than this one. This employee lot also accounts for all of those school bus drivers who will no longer be there. So we will lose, this is obviously permeable right now. We will lose some of that for the busway. But if we can offset that by tearing up some of the asphalt in the back, I'm hoping that that'll mitigate some as well. Questions on that part so far, anything?
Mike, when we did the TOD plan, one of the things we explored was the idea that at one point, that road that goes to the Elliott at River's Edge might be able to connect up to where the raise grant will go. And part of that was that there wasn't, other than going out to Elm Street and then down Queen City Ave, there wasn't a good alternative for network connectivity in there. All those roads were ancient, pretty old, narrow roads. So, large vehicles aren't going to be making that intersection corner between Gas Street and Hancock.
Yep.
And, I saw the plan that you guys showed at the, what was it, the MPO meeting last
Probably, yeah.
month?
Yeah.
And it looked great. It looked like it actually did not preclude the concept of a future road going through there, even if it is 30 years away. And I was curious if that would hold true with when you replace the bus bays, whether that would still hold true. The design of the bus bays wouldn't preclude the ability for a future connection there.
Correct. So when we do that second phase, the other benefit of shifting maintenance to I guess that would be the south, is it will give us a space for a secondary platform. So with the space we have right now, we'll be able to meet MTA's immediate needs. But if we continue to grow as we have over the last decade, we're going to need additional bays, additional vehicles. We can then place that in right here because all of this will have shifted down, and that will allow us to still be on this side of the property. So if this street network changes, we haven't boxed ourselves off. We're kind of putting maintenance in the dead end corner. And they don't need a secondary egress, so that should be fine. It also leaves some flexibility on this side so that if there were a rail platform or some type of infrastructure put in here, we also haven't cut ourselves off from the rail. So definitely trying to think of some different future scenarios and not restrict our ability to grow in different directions. Great question. Any others? Any on the Zoom? Okay, so the other thing that I just wanted to touch on that this will make a big difference for, yes, you've got the built environment. We've been running transit since 1973. That means every winter our 300,000 passengers stand out in the snow and the cold. When it rains, they get soaked. We have 2 seats at Veterans Park, and we have 2 over at the Doubletree. So the first 4 of those 300,000 can sit. Everybody else stands. It's not ideal. So there's a human element to this that I think is just really nice, giving them back a lot of their dignity and just kind of basic access to restrooms, access to seating, access to some type of climate control. That's going to be great. But on a logistical side, we will be able to increase frequency. We've done this with some of the routes already, and we have seen fabulous returns. We've grown as much as we can with that because we're out of space at Veterans Park. We already wrap around the corner on both sides of Elm Street. There's no room for any more buses. We also can't launch any more zip lines, even though Nashua and Concord, Salem is coming along. It's the newest of those, but they continue to be robust. I would like to put more Nashua and Concord trips. I have no place else to put another 45-foot coach bus down there. Having these bays, each route will have its own bay. So we could run buses instead of hourly every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes. Like there's a lot more opportunity there when you're not kind of restricted by here's 1 block on Elm north, 1 block south. And then buses will go out kind of in both directions. So some will come up to Elm Street, but some that are going like the Green Dash will come in through hopefully that new street network because that's connecting through the mill yard. So having that go out by the ballpark just makes a lot of sense. It will also give us a little bit more operational flexibility when Elm Street closes. Right now, if Elm Street closes for a race or the antique cars that come in, we shift all of our operations to the 2 sides of the arena, but Chestnut Street is a one-way street. That's less than ideal. And Lake Ave, well, it's got that nice cutout on this side of the arena. It's not the same size as the Elm Street hub that we use, so not everything fits in there. So some have to go onto the Elm Street side of the arena, which pushes the buses right into the road closure, which is also not great. So it will allow us to take some of these buses off of Granite Street. Every bus I could take off Granite Street, I'm gonna. I don't like going down there. to Queen City. It's just so much faster. Anybody who's driven over those two bridges know they are nothing on it. So if we can have, especially our zip lines accessing 293 from exit 4 instead of 5, that's going to be fantastic. And then the last benefit of this is it will allow us to totally reconfigure how the routes are structured because of that capacity constraint, we have duplicity in the route network. So if you think of someplace like CMC, big demand generator, Route 6 only runs once an hour. So Route 7, which is the 2nd Street Bedford Grove bus, also goes over the Bridge Street Bridge and goes by CMC. That's so that CMC can have 30-minute bus frequency. But in a otherwise unconstrained world, there's no reason you'd send the 2nd Street bus north to Bridge Street to then backtrack all along the west side. We'll be able to start snapping those things apart because the 6 will just run every 30 minutes on its own, thereby allowing the 7 to maybe reach further down. I think it's South River Road once you go over the border, but maybe that gets down to Target where we run Route 4 right now. Maybe freeing up Route 4 to then that vehicle can go serve a currently unserved part of the region. So there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of restructure things too. So a lot of good besides just what kind of comes to mind first with quality of life for the riders. There'll be a big impact on our system as well.
And this all starts next, like July?
Yeah, hopefully the construction starts next summer. Yeah.
And how long?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
And really the thing holding us up is just the need to relocate those. I still don't know where the district is going to house and maintain their fleet, but for perspective, our first notification to the district of our intent to move in this direction was in 2018. So at this point, we have given them 8 years. We went from doing all of their operations to doing 50% to doing just the maintenance and storage. June 30 next year, we need to be out. So I know that is a challenge for the district, it's a challenge for the city, but we're not going to hold up this $25 million project because they can't find a parking lot. You know, at the end of the day, our priority has to be to transit. We are the Manchester Transit Authority, so it is definitely flipped from when I first came. We used to be a school bus provider that did some transit on the side. Those two divisions have definitely flipped over the last 15 years. So,
all right.
Yeah. Any questions? If not, I'll get us closer to back on schedule.
I actually just had a quick question. Sorry. Do you know if these school buses are owned by the district?
They are.
They are.
Yes.
That's exciting. Well, I will be talking about some grants for some school buses in a bit. So.
Excellent.
I was just thinking, like, when the new center is built and you have those bays, you know, access from Elm Street to the property for buses becomes even more important than it is right now for on-time performance and
yep.
Have you talked to the city about, is there a potential for transit signal priority at Gas Street or potentially other intersections in the vicinity?
Yeah, we have had some of those conversations with DPW. We've also looked at like the South Willow corridor.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transit. That's the one route that we have managed to get the 30-minute frequency all day long. It used to have this little 3-hour gap in the middle of the day where we were still hourly. We closed that November 3rd, so that is finally done. 5:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night, every 30 minutes. But yeah, we know from our own onboard GPS data that 20% of that route is spent sitting at red lights. So if there were a way to get that, I mean, it takes an hour for the bus to go to the mall and back. That's all it does. It doesn't have any kind of loops. It's a pretty slow go.
And that's after that's one of 2 routes in Manchester that are optimized, where the signals are optimized.
Yeah.
So, and that's best case scenario right now.
So transit signal priority, just so people know, is different than preemption, right?
Right.
So like a police car comes to a signal, everybody gets a red to let the police car flush. That's not what we're talking about. There's a difference between preemption and prioritization. So in transit signal prioritization, the signal would hold the green a few seconds longer if it knew a bus was nearby to let the bus flush, or return to green a few seconds faster if it knew a bus was nearby and needed to let that bus flush. So But when you know, if done correctly, it adds up to minutes on a signalized corridor, which has a huge impact on the ability to achieve on time.
Yeah, minutes per loop over 13 hours over 6 days a week. You're talking tons of time every year. One of the things that MTA is looking at, if that becomes a reality, it does change how we have to locate our bus stops. Right now, the vast majority of transit stops are on the approach side of an intersection because there's not prioritization. So we assume the light will be red. So we stop before we get there. With the signal change, you would move all of those stops to the other side because you wouldn't want the bus sitting there loading, passenger mobility device. We might be there 2-3 minutes. And we're just messing up the cycling of the light. We would want to get through that so that we weren't causing that issue. But it does mean kind of flipping some of those no parking zones from instead of on the approach to the other side. But well worth the time, I think.
Yeah, definitely discussion worth that.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Fabulous. Thank you.
Do you want to stop sharing?
I suppose I can do it.
That
There were two texts in the text box. I don't know.
Here's the other two maps, just so that Adam doesn't feel like I sent them to him for nothing.
Because
I think we have to go here.
what's that?
Linda liked their maps.
Oh,
Or I should say my map.
that's definitely your map.
No, how do I cease it?
I think you just need to.
Oh, up here.
Yep, there you go.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, she's
We
leaving.
can-
Oh, and he's
All right, so that leaves Mac from DES to talk about some funding programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me present at the end here. I got a little double booked today, but I'm very excited to talk about our funding programs. So just give me 2 seconds. I'm just gonna share my screen here.
Oh, let me make sure you can.
Oh, I gotta send a request. There you go.
Right, try now.
All right, let's try it. Hey, look at that. Okay. We're gonna use this screen. All right, can everybody see my screen here? We're not in slideshow yet, but we're going to be in a second.
Well, yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome, cool.
Good.
So we're going to put this over here. Okay, so we're going to talk about our New Hampshire Clean Diesel program and our Granite State Clean Fleets program. I am always super excited whenever I see a lot of buses that are owned by a public entity because because both of our programs, New Hampshire Clean Diesel and Granite State Clean Fleets, both fund yellow school buses that are owned by public entities. So if you're looking for new school buses in the for funding, both of these programs are really great opportunities to look at. So figured I'd just throw that out there. Got really excited when I saw all of those buses in that aerial shot. I was like, ooh, nice.
You'd
All
be
right.
even more excited to know how many of them are already programmed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go. Hopefully this will maybe solve the problem. So we're going to talk about, or we're going to have a quick intro, New Hampshire Clean Diesel and Granite State Clean Fleets overview, 2 different programs. We're going to talk about priority New Hampshire communities, which is an aspect of our scoring for our programs, and then have a quick little program comparison between the two because they're very similar, and then steps to apply, and then let you guys have any time for questions. So talking about our New Hampshire Clean Diesel program, it is approximately $315,000 of DERA funding. So it's the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, which is funded by the EPA. That is a bill. Applications will be accepted by midnight of the 20th of each month on a rolling monthly basis until March 2026, or until all funding has been obligated, essentially. All projects must be completed by September 30th, 2025, and we tell people when they're selected about 5 days afterwards. So we're going to talk about our different eligible projects. So diesel or non-road vehicles, engines and equipment, including loaders, graders, mowers, snow groomers, tractors. We say unit specifically because it's not just a vehicle. You can replace an engine, you could replace a locomotive, so a train, or you could replace a boat if you wanted to, if you guys have any boats around. Diesel on-road vehicles, engines of engine model year 2010 and newer if replaced with a fully electric vehicle or engine. Truck stop, idling reduction, parking space electrification technologies as well. So again, you're taking a diesel unit and you're replacing it with something that reduces emissions. The only caveat to this is when we say alternative fuels, we are not including biodiesel or renewable diesel because there's no specific unit to run biodiesel or renewable diesel. You can put that in any diesel vehicle. So when we talk about alternative fuels, we're talking about electric, we're talking about CNG and propane, various things like that. All right, so usage requirements. Agricultural pumps is 250 hours per year during the first 2 years. Locomotives and marine engines is 1,000 hours per year during the 2 years prior to replacement. All other non-road engines is 500 hours per year. Highway vehicles is 7,000 miles per year. So it really depends on the type of unit, right? So when we're looking at this and applying for this, you always want to look at the RFP to make sure that you have that specifications. So how much can be reimbursed? This is like the really big hot topic question, right? So between 25% and 60% of eligible product cost, depending on the technology proposed. The gist of it is essentially the more emissions you reduce, the more funding you're going to receive. So if you take a diesel unit and you replace it with an EV, you're going to get a higher funding percentage if you did a diesel to diesel, essentially. But it's still a great opportunity for a lot of public organizations that are really struggling to find funding and struggling with increase in costs with tariffs and such. So Granite State Clean Fleets, second program, very similar to New Hampshire Clean Diesel. You're taking a diesel unit and replacing it with something that burns cleaner emissions or no emissions at all. This is funded by the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust. There's a larger pot of funding, which is really exciting. So we have $4.5 million in Volkswagen Trust funds still available. Originally, it was about $7.5 million. And so we've done such a good job with trying to obligate this funding that it's gone to $4.5 million, which is really exciting. So, but that still means that people should apply. So again, applications will be accepted by midnight on a rolling monthly basis on March 30th, 2026, or until funding has been obligated. Applications will be received after 4 p.m. on Monday, March 30th, 2026. Won't be accepted afterwards. So again, these are just to clarify the difference between these two programs and their due dates. New Hampshire Clean Diesel, the application is due on the 20th of the month. Granite State Clean Fleets, applications is due on the 30th of the month, just so that we're aware of the difference. There are a couple of two different dates for that. And projects must be completed by December 31st, 2026. So different projects types, again, replacing an old diesel unit with a new alternative fuel, electric or hydrogen. EV infrastructure is included if you're looking into an EV, and marine shore power idle reduction installations as well. A couple of different types of projects. Some transit organizations, the units are owned by the state. School and shuttle buses, so those can be owned by municipalities. Diesel engines, drayage, dump and plow trucks, ferry, tug, refuge trucks, the list goes on. So this is a really great opportunity for people if you're looking for getting a new diesel unit. This is a really great opportunity, even if you're not like looking into an EV, maybe you're a little afraid of EV. We also have diesel to diesel and diesel to alternative fuels for CNG and propane. So if you're really hesitant about EV, I would still look at this program because it is still a good funding percentage, even if you're not looking for EV. Usage requirements on road projects must be used of a minimum of 2,500 miles or 500 hours of engine use annually. We've got freight switcher locomotives as well, 1,000 hours, and ferry and tug for 250 hours. This table is a really good breakdown of the engine model year requirements and additional requirements, so like the classes and such. I'm not going to go through it all because I know you guys can see it, but this is a really good resource for people to look at, just like a quick breakdown of what's in the RFP. So, talking about priority New Hampshire communities. Both programs have a section in the scoring criteria on priority New Hampshire communities, which are within a specific percentage of the poverty line. So if you're within a percentage of the poverty line for, I think it's 1 to 50th percentile, sorry, it's blocking my view here, you get a specific amount of points. And if you're in a priority 2 for the 51st and 100th individuals below the poverty level, you get up to 5 bonus points. So I believe it's 10 bonus points and 5 bonus points on there. So if you're in a specific district or community that are looking for funding, you may have an advantage points-wise when you're applying for this program. So I highly suggest if you apply or looking to apply to look at the RFP and look and see if the towns that are in your district to apply, because you're going to have a higher advantage in that way in terms of points.
Looks
So
like Chester is in the first, and then Barry and Francistown in our region are in the second.
I'm going to go back here. There you go.
So if I'm reading correctly, it looks like Manchester is in the first priority tier in our region, and then we have Derry and Francistown in the priority 2 table.
Yeah.
Those would be the ones in our region. It's like,
yeah. And that doesn't mean other towns shouldn't apply, but these towns do get bonus points for being in the specific poverty line. So they have a little bit more of an advantage. So just to do like a side-by-side comparison of these two programs, because they're very similar, right? So Granite State Clean Fleets and New Hampshire Clean Diesel, GSCF, if you do a diesel-to-diesel replacement, you get up to 80% of a reimbursement. So you have to put the funding up in advance and pay for the unit. You provide proof that you've paid for the unit and that you've received the unit, scrap the old unit, and then you receive reimbursement. For New Hampshire Clean Diesel, it is 25%. So there is a big difference between funding percentages, but we've tried to complement the programs with each other so that New Hampshire Clean Diesel is primarily off-road and Granite State Clean Fleets is primarily on-road. Now, there are some exceptions, of course, like I said, yellow school buses that are owned by a public entity can apply for both. They qualify for both. So I highly suggest that if you have a lot of yellow school buses that are like on the verge of breaking down, that you should look into these programs. Same thing, for example, diesel to alternative fuel, you get a 90% reimbursement, and for diesel to battery electric, grid, or hydrogen fuel cell, you get 95%. And then as you can see for New Hampshire Clean Diesel, it's 35% and 45%. So the more emissions you reduce, the higher funding percentage you're going to receive, which is really exciting. But 80%, if you're scared of EV, which is okay, diesel to diesel is still a really good deal. And then this is a really great side-by-side comparison of the qualifications for this program as well, for grant opportunities. So public entities qualify, diesel, propane, and natural gas. I could go on, but you guys can see the picture here. So there are a lot of similarities between the two programs, but there are a few little differences that you have to be aware of when you're applying. So. And I do have a webinar that has these tables, those past two tables on our website, and I can give you the links to them as well, so you don't have to scramble and write if you don't want to. So, steps to apply. The system is very similar to each other. We try to make it be as simple as possible. You're going to read the request for proposals. It's your how to apply, essentially. You've got your scoring criteria, you've got your eligibility, various things like that, and funding percentages. You have 2 application forms. You're going to only use 1. And so that application form, depending on your type of project, is going to ask for basically your unit specs, because we're going to look at the emissions of the unit and see how much the unit is reducing when you compare the original unit to the replacement unit that you want. So you're going to use that in your A1 form. You're going to email your completed application to MS Grants, which is me, and then review the program web page for more details. So we have our FAQs on the website. If you're like, this is a lot of information, I need help, feel free to give me a call or drop me an email. I'm very available. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. But that's basically just the side-by-side gist of the 2 programs. There's our QR code for Granite State Clean Fleets and New Hampshire Clean Diesel.
Excellent. Anyone with questions for Mac? Mac, can you share with us sort of like a one pager or something that we can put in our media blast? We're going to send that out in December.
So I have I have a couple of like e-news blasts that I can send out. I'm trying to think of like anything else that I could send out for you.
Anything for our social media, etc.
Yeah, let me see if I can find something. I do have a couple of e-news blasts that I've sent out that have like a side-by-side comparison of it. Unfortunately, a lot of the sometimes there's a lot of information on the RFP that isn't necessarily there's not like enough information for e-news to do that, or social, but I can give you some graphics like the tables that was on here, like these 2 tables here. I can probably provide to you guys.
Yeah, well, if you can send the entire presentation, that would be good. We'll want to add that anyway, but it'd be good to have that available, and then Adam can create a post and with what you're sending and any background, because some of this print is pretty small. So yeah,
definitely we can do that. And I can see if I can give, because I have a couple of graphics with QR codes that go to our page too. So I think that would probably
that would be great. Yeah,
that definitely makes sense.
And if you have anything for the 3 priority communities, what that means for them, and that'd be great so that we can.
So it's basically within the specific percentage of the poverty line. So I believe I have to move this. There it is. So priority 1 communities list is New Hampshire communities ranked 1st to 50th on individuals below the poverty level percentage. So they get up to 10 points. Priority 2 is the 50th to 100th, which is up to 5 points. That's all that they need to know. Essentially, this is in our scoring criteria that is in our RFP. So that basically how the projects are assessed is in the RFP, or either RFP for each program. We essentially tell them how the projects are assessed. So the priority New Hampshire community, since that is a bonus point of the scoring criteria, it's right there in the RFP in the scoring criteria. So I highly suggest, if anybody's looking to apply, to look at that scoring criteria in the RFP as well.
Okay.
Hi, Mac. This is James Veo from the commission. I just wanted to note, you might want to reach out to the Conservation Law Foundation. They have a grant to help improve the quality of the environment in the center city of Manchester.
Yeah.
And they've gotten into the habit of paying a grant writer to apply for grants on behalf of the city of Manchester where it meets their mission. And so this might be one of those things where, you know, electrifying school buses or moving buses to natural gas would be well within the scope of what they would pay their grant writer to do the application on behalf of the city for.
What did you say the organization was again? I'm just writing it down.
It's the Conservation Law Foundation. You would reach out to Tom Irwin. What I'll do is I'll send an email and connect you with Tom over there after the meeting.
Awesome, thank you so much. Also, there is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Clean Energy New Hampshire as well. They also have energy circuit riders that help people to apply for grants as well. And I can, if you guys aren't familiar with that, I can send that to you as well. But it's also good to give these resources out to municipalities because a lot of them are not aware of it. And they sometimes are overwhelmed with applying. So.
Okay.
Mac, do you know if the department has given any consideration to moving the 2010 model year number at all? I know that was in place when the very first round of VW funding came out several
I'd
years
have
ago.
to check and see. Essentially, how it works is we are given guidelines from the Volkswagen Mitigation Trust. It's managed by the Wilmington Trust. And so we basically have to work within the box that they give us. So some of that is eligibility, some of that is various engine model year guidelines. I'd have to check and see if that's something enforced by VW. Some things we change for us based on our audience, right? So basically Volkswagen says you need to work within these parameters or work within this box. And however you would like to open your program is up to you as long as you work within this box. So I'd have to check and see if that is a Volkswagen guideline or if that's something that we did, but I think that is a Volkswagen guideline.
All right, looking forward to anything you might send us, and we'll get it up on our outreach materials.
Yeah.
All right, if you can stop sharing, there we go, and we can see if there's any questions from our home viewers. All right, it doesn't look like it. I think we can unofficially adjourn since this is not a quorum, but thanks everyone. Linda gave you a round of applause there. Thanks, Matt. Thanks everyone for coming and zooming in and being here today. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you so much.
How are you? Good.